So first time mom freaking out. They're taking my baby away.
I need only you in this crazy world, 'cause we got love. I need only you here with me. You wanna get close to me? Why don't you do it right now? You know we met for a reason, but you're trying to deny that we should be together. It's heavy weather, we're heading for tonight.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd share with you guys the birth story of my oldest, Liam, who is going to be 5 in August. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I've actually never shared any of the birth stories of either of my sons here on my YouTube channel, so I thought I would do that today. So I am actually driving home from work, and my job is about an hour away. So I figured, what a great time to do car chats and share with you guys our experience of our firstborn son. So just like a lot of mamas, at the end of their very first pregnancy, I had to be induced. I had to go on Pitocin and be induced for labor. So I had my membrane swept earlier that week, and on Tuesday started to go into labor on Friday, and I went to the hospital and they said, you are in labor, however we're not going to keep you because you're not far enough along yet. And I remember being in triage, and the nurse walked out of the room, and the other nurse said to her, she's like, she has a doctor. You can't make the decision if she's staying or not. Her doctor has to make that decision. So, and we heard this going on outside of the room. It was my mom and me, and my dad, since my husband was at work at the time. And so I heard her say this to the other nurse, and she's like, well, I know, but I mean, she's not far enough along, and we don't have a room for her, so we're not going to keep her. And she's like, well, you better call her doctor. So she called my doctor, and my doctor said, well, it's Labor Day weekend, so of course, give her the Pitocin and keep her. She's going to be back within 24 hours anyway, and I'm on call this weekend, so I'd rather help her deliver the baby, so induce her. So we did that, and this was in the morning. I started to go into labor around 6 a.m. I got to the hospital, I would say around 9. Actually, I think I was with my sister because, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was with my sister at the time who was pregnant. So I think it was my sister and my mom that I was with, and she took me to the hospital. And this was about 6 a.m. that I went into labor. I went to my appointment, and because I was being monitored, they knew the cord was wrapped around Liam's neck twice. And so I went to the appointment, and they said, yeah, you are having active contractions. We think you should go over and get checked, blah, blah, blah. So I did. So they ended up keeping me, getting me into a room around, I would say 1 o'clock, hooked me up to Pitocin, and it was pretty much smooth sailing with me dilating. And then I was completely dilated and fully effaced, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, but the baby wasn't dropping. So you have to be, they want you to be at a 0. Well, ideally they'd like you to be at a +2 to push, or at least a +1. And Liam was at a -2. So the doctor was like, Brittany, I'm not letting you push because you're going to be pushing for hours upon hours. And the baby's like, she's like, with labor, it's, 1 step forward and 2 steps back. So she's like, literally, like, you will be pushing for hours and hours. So she said, I'm giving you 1 more hour. If you don't progress, then we're going to take him C-section. So I sat there and I prayed for an hour. My mom and I prayed, and I was pretty set. I was okay if I was going to have a C-section. I was like, whatever, as long as the baby's healthy. And my mom's like, no, you don't want a C-section. The recovery time is really long. And she's like, obviously if you have to have a C-section, you have to have a C-section. That's fine. But we'd rather you be able to, give or push the baby out. So we prayed, and luckily an hour later, the doctor comes in and she's like, I can't believe it, but you're at a 0. So I'm going to let you start pushing. And so I think I pushed for about 3.5 hours, because I think at this time it was like 2 a.m. I ended up having him at 5:18 in the morning. Everything was great. She was like, you know what, Brittany, you're going to give me one last big push and I'm going to help him out. And she used the vacuum to help him out. This was great. He came out. He looked like a porcelain doll. It was amazing. I got to hold him. I nursed right away. My family got to hold him. They sang happy birthday to him. It was the sweetest thing. And then back then, they took the baby out of the room to do the baths. So the nurse said to me, she's like, you've been up all night. You've been up for over 24 hours now, because I was in labor for 23 hours. She said, why don't you let us take the baby? We'll bathe him. We'll do his vital signs and everything in the nursery, and we'll bring him back when he's done. So, I was reluctant, but I was like, all right, take him. Let me, get some rest for like an hour. Maybe I can take a shower or whatever. So I did that. And when I woke up, I called the nurse in, and she comes into the room, and I said to her, can you bring my baby back in the room? And she said, well, let me get the doctor. I'm like, what do you mean, let you get the doctor? And so I'm like, what is going on? So she leaves the room, the doctor comes back in, and I'm like, where is my baby? And they said that your child wasn't holding his vital signs. His temperature was not right. His heart's racing. We had to take him to the NICU. So like, you didn't come in and tell me? When were you going to tell me this? He's like, well, we're just taking him over now. And I said, well, can I come with him? And he's like, no, you can't come with him. You have to wait at least an hour until you can go over. So first time mom, freaking out. They're taking my baby away to the NICU. I had no idea what was going on. And mind you, I was one of the first in like my friends group to have a baby. So I wasn't used to any of this. I had cousins who had kids, but I didn't really like have a close friend or anything like that had kids at the time. So they took the baby. About an hour later, I called to the NICU and I asked them what was going on, and they said, you can come over, you can come on down, they'll show you how to get here, and we'll fill you in. Just note your baby is hooked up to machines and whatnot, so just be aware of that when you come in. So my husband and I head over to the NICU, and we get in there, and it was okay. He wasn't in like an incubator or anything like that. But he was hooked up to like a lot of machines, and the doctor came over, and there was 2 doctors, and the doctors started talking to us, and they were like telling us what was going on. And the only thing that I could gather out of the conversation was that they were pretty sure he had an infection. They're not sure how he got it, but obviously through childbirth, and that he needed to be on antibiotics. So I'm thinking, okay, you're an adult, you have an infection, you take antibiotics. I mean, most of the time within how many days you're fine, right? So I asked the nurse, because they had really, really thick accents, the doctors. And I said, I'm not really sure what's going on. Can you just explain to me like what the doctor said and blah, blah, blah. So she's explaining this to us. And so when she was finished with the conversation, I looked at her and I said, so Liam has what you think is an infection and he's starting antibiotics. So he's going to be okay, right? And she looked at me, and I kid you not, the words out of the nurse's mouth were, he could still die. And I'm like, what? You're telling this to a first-time mom, her child's in the NICU, you're telling me that my child could die? Why would you say that? So I look at my husband, and I just like completely lose it. I was just bawling, sobbing. And so we called my parents. We told them what was going on. They literally had just gotten home like an hour before, because they had been up all night with us. They went home to watch a football game. And it was like right at the beginning of football season. And they rushed back to the hospital. And it was just such a nightmare of an experience. Thank goodness I actually had a friend nurse in the NICU that was an overnight nurse at the time. And so she would like text me throughout the night and let me know like how he was doing when I wasn't over there breastfeeding him. But they wouldn't let me. They made me stop breastfeeding at first. I had to pump. they were like, you can't breastfeed him because he needs to be on a feeding tube. And so it was just, makes me want to cry to this day thinking about like me being in that situation. It was just insane. And so 24 hours went by and his vital signs still were not coming down. So his vital signs were still all over the place. So his heart rate and his temperature and everything was completely all over the place. So my dad called our pastor, and our pastor came to the hospital, and he, walks in, and he was there to like pray with us. So I handed the baby to my pastor. My dad said to me, he said, Brittany, are you sure you want to do that? The baby has an infection. And I said, yes. He's our pastor. Like, I'm giving the baby to him. I want him to hold the baby while we're praying. So he held the baby, and we were praying, and all of our eyes were closed, and we were praying for the baby, and the doctor come over and like gasped. And so we were like, what? And he was like, this is the first time since your son has been in the NICU that his vital signs are completely perfect. And from then on out, his vital signs, after we prayed, they were pretty much on point. But they realized he was still having breathing issues. So after 24 hours, they ended up doing a chest x-ray, realized that his collarbone was broken, which is the reason why when they did blood work. So apparently in infants, when you do blood work, this is now I am definitely not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, so I have no idea, but the doctor said to us, when you're a baby, when you have inflammation in your body, it shows up in your blood work the same as it would an infection. So they automatically assumed an infection, started giving him antibiotics. But here his collarbone was broken. He was in pain, he had inflammation in his body. That is why his vital signs were all over the place. So they had to finish the antibiotic treatment because they had started giving it to him already, but we were able to get discharged at the same time. It was amazing. We got to come home at the same time, and we really just had to be extra careful with him when we were doing like newborn photos and people were holding him and things like that, because obviously he did have a broken bone and we didn't want to hurt it any more than it already was. So, but I just look back, and it was such a crazy experience for us, and it was so scary as first-time parents. But at the end of the day, it really just ended up being a broken bone. And, I thank God all the time that he's perfectly healthy and he's fine and he doesn't have any issues with it to this day. It's great. And he is a healthy, thriving 5-year-old. And it's just amazing. It's amazing what we can do as women. It's amazing just the whole entire process, and to be able to, be his mommy and be there for him as he grows up is just so amazing. But I know that, I do have another birth story with my son Caleb, and that's totally different. So that's a story for another day. But I thought I would share this with you because it was just such a crazy experience, and I'm sure there are other moms out there that can relate to having a crazy NICU experience. But yeah, so if you guys liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Brittany. I am a full-time work from home. I almost said outside of the home working mom. I don't do that anymore. Full-time work from the home mom. I go into an office setting once a week, and it's just amazing. So we have so much planned for my YouTube channel this year. I hope that you guys subscribe and stick around. So we will see you guys in our next video. Bye, guys.